Hello guys, welcome back to my team, episode technically 2, but we're here for the first round of the Australian Grand Prix. We're in our motorhome and you can see we've got Hubert across from us, and the team overalls, they're not looking very nice, to be honest. They're looking pretty ugly, if I do have to say so myself, but nonetheless we're going to obviously go through. You can see we had the overalls on show very briefly there, and unfortunately we didn't show it in the last video. You got a little glimpse of it down there in the bottom left, but when we go out on track you'll obviously be able to see it as we move into the first practice session. So nice and sunny for the first time we go out on track, which is always nice for ourselves, trying to get underway. It's a shame they can't incorporate the 2020 calendar in the game with the tracks. It sucks to an extent, but at the same time there's not much Codemasters can do. We're going to kind of have to just sit with it, but we are in the car for the first time. You can see what I mean about the overalls. Cream and red. I'm not sure if I changed that at some point, but yeah, I'm not a fan in the slightest of those colours, unfortunately. But again, we'll probably look at revisiting that further down the line. But we've got a whole heap of practice programs to do. We didn't do them in the F2 career mode, as there was literally 0 point. But obviously you can bet your bottom dollar that in here we are definitely going to get these practice programs done. As we've got the badge on the right hand side as he takes off the tyres. Tyre blankets off the tyres, and we are getting ready to pull out the garage for the first time, and we'll begin the acclimatisation. There's our helmet, there's our car, and good lord does this car look nice on track as well as on board. It's such a good looking livery, very reminiscent of the traditional 2012 Lotus, which is kind of the vibe I was going for really, trying to replicate that as best as possible. But nonetheless, going through practice programs, we managed to lose it on the chicane, on the lap. We managed to get away with no damage, luckily, to the rear end. That wouldn't have been great for us. But when we look at a replay, we just go in way too hot, and just trying to find the limit of the car, and we get all sideways on the entrance, so we end up cutting the chicane on the exit, wide on the exit curb, and then we just lose the back end. But you can see maximum points in the practice programs across the board. And obviously, we started to get some series points, for example. Looking back at that level 10, well and truly clear. Obviously, because we did them all in the first session, hence why we're so high up. No other reason other than that. But nonetheless, there are the race suits. You can see Hubert and ourselves stood there with my arms crossed. I'm not impressed after that incident. But again, potentially the race suits may change with sponsors and stuff like that. Obviously, we've got the our main sponsor across the front, obviously Lotus, and on the hat as well, we've got it there too. So not sure quite what's going on with Hubert's Pirelli on his arm, but I'm going to move into qualifying and see what we can do. Cars felt really, really good, to be fair, given the aerodynamic advantage we had from the beginning of the season. We can complete our first interview. Arav in the background, and yeah, I'm really not a fan of these shirts whatsoever. Might change them around just a little bit, but coming through on to the end of that one, we've got a bit of traffic. We've got Latifi just ahead of us, who's, I'm assuming he's about to start a push lap, so he might hamper us a little bit. We're going to get a nice little toe down the start finish straight though, as DRS wide open, coming across the line to set our first time on this series, and we go P2 just ahead of Giovinazzi, Magnussen, Ocon and Ricciardo, to be fair. So one thing to bear in mind, obviously this was like early post, so obviously the performance is a bit weird, but Kvyat goes down the inside of Vettel and ourselves, and that could have been a hairy accident. So we move to the right hand side, get out of the way, and then Vettel just turns in almost on the same line that we're on, and almost pinches Kvyat there. Luckily he had enough room just about, but can only imagine what he'd have been like on the radio, to say the least. So we're back in the garage, tyre blankets are going back on. Very interesting moment from the AI, to say the least. See, as I was saying, so obviously this was recorded at the very beginning of the game, so obviously the performances are all over the place in comparison to everything else, but we can see we're in P10 currently, in Q1, so we managed to make it through straight away, which was relatively easy. 1.4 seconds off the pace, and Hubert is down in 20th, so obviously it's going to be quite difficult for him, bless him, as we try and see what we can do. But touching on the helmet as we cross the line, helmet's very nice, matte and shiny at the same time. When they come across the line, it was a horrific lap that time round. We really struggled in the middle sector, so P14 currently not good enough quite to get into Q3. Hamilton on mediums, in fact, in P12, so he's going to have to go again on softs. Well, you can see we're second up. We might not quite beat our first lap in Q1. But we're going to come across the line on a brand new set of super soft tyres, and we're going to put it P6. So definitely didn't want to have to go out as many times as we needed to, but luckily for us, we do actually manage to get through. So yeah, not bad. We managed to scrape through in P9, 1.1 seconds off the pace there. Eventually everyone qualified on the super soft tyres just to make sure they all got through. So we're here for our first run in Q3, coming up to the line now, switching up to 8th gear, and it's only good for P5, which is essentially last place, as we are still in last place. We're behind Ricciardo, Perez, Albon. We get a little bit squirmy on the exit there. Managed to keep it under control. We're 7 tenths up on the final run I think we're going to get here in Q3. We'll come across the line any second now and see if we can improve on our position, and that's going to put us P9. It was literally nothing. Like we barely gained anything at all. So fortunately for us, we couldn't do massive damage in Q3, but Q3 appearance was very good. First time out. I'm still to record the second episode in terms of races, so it's going to be interesting to see how dramatic of a change the performances will be with the drivers and the cars. So I'm expecting it to be a little bit harder, especially in qualifying as well. I know qualifying I've had updates. There's Jesus there on the right hand side, just floating above water. Supposedly that's fixed as well, but that is something we'll probably have to see next season. We won't get a chance to look at it this year, unfortunately. But Mercedes, by all accounts, look like they have locked out the front row, and a testament to the early patch. They're the literally silver arrows as opposed to the black arrows, unfortunately. But we move, and Carlos Sainz being interviewed there. But it's going to be interesting to see what we can do here. I think, given the fact our tyre life isn't going to be that great, I think the best thing we can do probably this whole season until we get a few upgrades on the car is most likely going to go really long and maybe make as minimum stops as possible. I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, that worked really well last year's game in early career mode, so I don't see why this would be any different. So the goal will be to stay out long and just do exactly what we possibly can, and just maximise our ability to even just stay in the points. Obviously starting P9, we've got a great opportunity to score some points straight out of the blocks, which is obviously what any team would want coming to the first round of the season. But we're ready to look at the starting order for the grid. Lewis Hamilton and Bottas P1, P2, as you'd probably expect from this 2020 season. Vettel P3, very interesting that he's that high up there. Carlos Sainz P6, very good result for him. Ricciardo P8, ourselves in P10. We end up losing out to Ricciardo, unfortunately, in the end. But Kimi Räikkönen P13, good result from him. Magnussen 16th, Kvyat and Gasly. Very interesting, this is 18th there. Pretty sure it said P10 a minute ago. Nonetheless, Hubert is in P20, and the Williams are on the back row of the grid. So, as it stands, we are definitely beating Williams. So far, if the season ended, we'd have achieved our goal. You can see we're looking at the strategy, probably going to go just for the one stop, just because that way our life's a little bit easier. And any cars that are doing 2 stops, we may hopefully be able to keep hold of the position. But we're ready for the lights to go out here for our first ever race under the Lotus F1 team name. We've got Albon to the left, Ricciardo straight ahead of us, ready for the 5 lights to go out. And we are underway. We get to a pretty good start, not exactly phenomenal, as if you look at the F2 series, you can see our start is something we lack in. We get jumped by Raikkonen, Ocon just sends it to the inside. He's going to get a bit sideways, might try and fancy a move around the outside of Norris. We've got Giovinazzi just to the left of us, so we've been absolutely swamped off the start line. We're going to maybe go down the inside of a few cars here if possible, and bit of argy-bargy in the background. You can see a yellow flag out just for that. Ocon actually shoves us well off the track, very aggressive from the Frenchman, but we move up into P10, so we've managed to retain our position after all that malarkey, starting off the line, and then Ocon obviously giving it full beans and actually kind of sending it on us just a little bit. But we're behind Alex Albon as it stands, so we're going to try and see if we can close up to the back of him. He's behind Sergio Perez at the moment at this point in the game cycle. The racing point wasn't too great. We do lose touch with Albon eventually, and we have Ocon just behind us, who's looking a little bit racy here, so we're going to have to keep our eyes on the Frenchman. Given the earlier contact we had, not impressed. We've got a yellow flag out just ahead of us. Ocon maybe fancying a move under yellow flag / green flag conditions. So I'm not entirely convinced what's going on here in terms of the marshals with the flags. Kimi Räikkönen is the car that's out of the session. That's a safety car, which is going to help us out in the strategy we're doing, trying to go as long as possible. And we're actually going to come into the pit lane and make our stop. So ignore what I just said. Completely forgot that we actually pit under the safety car, as I'm pretty sure everybody does. So the pit lane is absolutely manic. Everyone's coming in left, right and centre. We're going to go to the end on these compound tyres just to make sure if any cars do make any alternate stops, we should be able to go through. Hubert does come in behind us, and it looks like he doesn't get held up, which is fantastic for us. We're going to have a look at the race director, look at tyre strategy. So quite a lot of the cars have gone back on soft. So we're the second runner on the harder compounds. Verstappen up the road, and obviously the cars behind us. Kvyat hasn't pit yet, so that's quite interesting for him. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but there was our teammate just behind the AlphaTauri. Fancying showing our nose to Ricciardo a little bit here, telling him we're going to pass you whether you like it or not. Obviously he's on the much softer rubber, so we might find it hard to close up to him. We get a bit sideways on the exit, which is not great. Luckily we had a bit of a gap to Sergio Perez, but the problem is up here, Danny Kvyat has a massive cork in the bottle for these boys. We managed to dispatch Daniel Ricciardo pretty easy, and we've got the Ferrari of Leclerc and the McLaren of Sainz just ahead, who are all being held up by Danny Kvyat, who hasn't pit, and he's on the same tyres as us by all accounts. So if we can dispatch all these boys while they're being held up by Kvyat, that's going to ruin their strategy and absolutely pay dividends to us. Leclerc goes past Verstappen through the very quick left-right, and you can see Verstappen, he hasn't got DRS. Obviously Leclerc's got a nice double bite of the cherry. We might fancy move down the outside of Max Verstappen here, if at all possible. We're on the exact same tyres, so Verstappen, who was leading all of the hard compound runners, is now behind us, and it looks like he might get passed by Ricciardo if he's not careful. Leclerc and Sainz are still behind Danny Kvyat. You know, up until Sainz got past him. Leclerc fancies a move, so we need to dispatch of Kvyat as soon as possible. Leclerc goes clean round the outside and manages to get a great job here. We're going to be pressured by Verstappen, so we've got to dispatch Kvyat literally right now. We hold up to the back of Leclerc, cut off Danny Kvyat's nose a little bit there, just give ourselves some room, but it's crazy. So at this point Verstappen then turns out he had a problem on the radio, which is why he was going incredibly slow. So he's dropped back behind Kvyat. Ricciardo managed to make a move on us, very clean. We get so squirmy on the exit of these high-speed corners, so that's something we've got to pay attention to further down the line. We let Ricciardo go. We don't need to fight him too much because he is on the super soft rubber, so he'll be making another pit stop before the end of this race, so that works out fine for us as those boys do start to come into the pit lane. So we get pumped up all the way up to P5. Leclerc still hasn't pitted, and I'm not sure if Sainz has at this point, but Ricciardo also still hasn't come into the pit lane, in which fact coming on to the start of lap 16 he does peel off into the pit lane, as does Charles Leclerc, and looks by all accounts it looks like the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton has also made a pit stop, so that bumps us up into P2. Bottas is the only car ahead of us, and he's still got to make his pit stop. Hamilton eventually, on the exact same lap he pitted, he's already up our chuff. We have got such a disadvantage to Lewis Hamilton. We're going to come across the line, and we're almost going to lead at some point of this Grand Prix, but not quite, by about half a second. Hamilton passes us before Bottas gets past, and unfortunately we can't quite hold on to that P1 at any point of this race. So Bottas straight away comes right up our gearbox, and Perez, who's the car behind, we've got about a 5-second gap to Sergio Perez, which is the guy we're racing effectively until the other guys manage to make their way through the field, but there's just no point. Bottas, you can see straight off the exit, got a phenomenal run on us on the softer tyres as well. So Bottas just flies past us. We'll try and stick with him as long as we can, you know, get pulled along from his slipstream, his DRS, and try and extend the gap to Sergio Perez. We lost a bit of time there, unfortunately, for ourselves, but yeah, so as you can see, we've lost quite a chunk of time to the Mercedes, and Sebastian Vettel is the car behind us next, followed by Verstappen, who I think has fixed his issues, but Sergio Perez has not fixed any issues whatsoever. He's retired from the Grand Prix, and that's brought out a safety car. Now, this is insane. So we're currently P3, Vettel behind us, Verstappen, and then everyone else subsequently behind us. We are holding a positive P3 at the moment. We've got the Mercedes ahead of us on a softer rubber. It's going to be interesting to see how they do off the restart. We get a phenomenal exit off the final corner, and Bottas, he really didn't put away well. We actually got the jump on him before we get to the start finish line. We're going to go down the inside of Valtteri Bottas, squeeze him out on the exit, and we make P2. We literally just overtook a Mercedes because Bottas had such a poor getaway off the final corner, and with a few laps to go, we're at P2. This is not in the script. We're losing so much time to Hamilton. Bottas is fighting with Vettel and Verstappen, so Bottas hasn't had a great opportunity to come back at us. He's looking pretty racy here. He's going to maybe stick his nose into this right hand. We go nice and wide, give him enough room, and we end up going a little bit wide and a bit sideways on the exit, so he might have a fantastic run, and he does indeed on the same part of track. So I think this is probably a weak area for our car, for a relatively high speed corner. Bottas has just got the jump on us. He's going to come all the way alongside us. We're going to have to dance all the way around the outside, hold that position, and I'm hoping Vettel can maybe get involved here and maybe take Bottas off of our tail. He can't do that. Bottas is going to look down our inside on this little left-right chicane. He's going to get the move done. He's going to be a bit slow mid-exit, and then Vettel tries to move around the outside. We're going to get a DRS, which is quite handy for us. Here comes Max Verstappen with power unit fixed, and Verstappen might try and fancy a move on Vettel if he gets a little bit sideways, which it looks like he managed to maintain that position pretty well, did Sebastian Vettel. So we lost Bottas. There's no chance of us catching up to him at any point, but we got to worry about defending from Vettel. We go wide at the penultimate corner, so that's obviously going to help us massively down the start finish straight. You can see he's already alongside us before we leave the exit the corner, so Vettel's already flown past us. We use overtake rich mode, and we're kind of on par pace with the Ferrari. He's going to take the inside. He locks his front right, which is going to give us a great switchback manoeuvre on Sebastian Vettel to retake P3 on the penultimate lap of this race. So the end of this race is literally just come alive instantly. We've got Vettel and Verstappen fighting for that final podium position, and we're just trying to hold on like our life depends on it, because it pretty much does. I mean, these tyres are pretty much had it at this point. We managed to conserve it under the safety car, but there's only so much we can do. We're on the grass, we go really, really wide. That's going to allow Sebastian Vettel through. We just cracked under the pressure, and now Verstappen may fancy a move on us and try and make a meal of us if he possibly can. We're going to hug the Ferrari as close as we can, just try and maintain the gap. Here comes Verstappen, a much better exit off of the exit. We bang rear tyres a little bit, so that could have been an aeroplane crash all by itself. Vettel's going to have the inside line. Vettel, he's already gone. Verstappen was going to have the inside line, but we said no. Here comes Verstappen down the inside. We might have to face the battle from Charles Leclerc if he could get through, but Verstappen does stick his nose in. We're going to go side by side. We bang tyres again with the Dutchman. We have got a humongous train behind us trying to hold on to this P4, and it's Verstappen's like half spun at some point. I'm not sure if there was contact. We might be able to see from here. So we go side by side here, and there was a little bit of contact. He manages to catch the half spin, and that allowed Leclerc and Albon to go through. So given how easy Vettel went through, we might struggle against Charles Leclerc on the final lap for this P4. This would be potentially our best race of the season, our best result we can probably get. So we're just trying to hold on to this for all we're worth. We cut across the chicane. Whatever, it really doesn't matter at this point. We're just trying to defend everything we've got from Charles Leclerc into the final few corners. We've got Albon in P6 as well. He's someone I want to beat personally. Lewis Hamilton wins the race for Mercedes. We're going to come into the penultimate corner. Nothing happening for Charles Leclerc at the moment. We've kept our composure, and we're going to come across the line, and we're going to take a monumental P4 after at one point being P2, effectively on the podium, to then drop into P4. But given how long we took these tyres, you can't complain. On the first race of the season, you can't complain at all. We took full advantage of the strategy. The safety cars worked for us perfectly, and we just did the absolute best. That was the maximum we could have gotten out of that race, 110%. I mean, Vettel obviously got through a mistake, but other than that, Vettel definitely looked like he was going to get us. I think Verstappen would have gotten us as well if he didn't do that half spin. Leclerc just didn't have the pace, unfortunately for him, which works out pretty well for us for sure. But yeah, that was mega. I think definitely knowing these kind of races don't happen too often, where the AI decide to do an extra stop and then there's a safety car and everything like that. We was racing Perez at one point, so the fact that he retired obviously helped us out massively, and we benefited the most easily out of everyone during that safety car period. So it's one of those races that you just got to make the most of, and if it happens again this season, hopefully we'll try and do the same. But P4, on debut, absolutely smashed it. Again, if we can get a better result than that all season, then sweet. If not, then I'll take that. I don't mind running around trying to get points. We got a P4 on the board. That's happy. I mean, that's very similar to I think what Haas did in their first race in Formula 1. They absolutely smashed it out the gates due to the safety cars, and then after that it kind of went downhill. But here's Claire, and see what she's going to ask me this time. So you gained a lot of positions during the race, didn't you? I mean, I gained a few, but you know, it was just down to just strategy, really. That's really where it came from. All expectations. I'm very good friends with Vert Mylander. he's definitely good old Vert is very helpful in our race today. Scraped the ball a few times. Yeah, the tyres were absolutely dead. That's my excuse for that. But I'm doubting we're going to see a lot of her throughout the rest of this series, as well as the career mode in general. But we absolutely smashed that. From our perspective, at least, we gave up another level in Acclaim, and Hubert obviously doing pretty well up to level 2. So I'm pretty sure it goes 5, 10, and 20 for the rest of the sponsors. So I could be wrong. It might be 2, 10, and 20. Either way, we should hopefully get a new sponsor on the car soon. But that's it for me, guys. If you enjoyed, please slap a like on it, and I'll see you next time.